Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Duet Reviews. My name is Jillian Robinson. I'm the Associate Artistic Producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre. And today, my duet review partner is an esteemed returning guest to the Cup, the wonderful performer, all-around fantastic friend, Alicia Plummer. How you doing, Alicia?
Hi, I'm doing good. Happy to be back, as always.
Woohoo. We are so grateful to have you. And Alicia and I have the wonderful honor of talking about Timon of Athens. This is a Dandelion Theatre production that is happening at the Theatre Center, November 12th to 17th, 2024. It is adapted by James Llewellyn Evans, directed by Max Ackerman, and we are going to get into it. Woo woo. Alicia and I are recording this right off of opening night. We had the opportunity to chat with some of the team, the design team, the cast, lovely connections schmoozing there. And now we're going to unpack their Timon. So before we get too far into it, as per usual, here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre, we always have our beverage of choice. So Alicia, what are you sipping on with us tonight?
My favorite question of the evening.
Woohoo!
I'm just having some mint tea, some peppermint tea. Just feeling the autumn, almost to winter vibes, and just wanted something nice and warm and cozy.
Love that. What's your mug say?
It
For our
says,
viewers?
how does your garden grow?
Ah, wow. I feel like that is also such a wonderful existential question to ask yourself after seeing a production of Timon of Athens.
Yeah, totally. Oh my goodness. I did this on purpose.
Yeah. You're like, it's all linked together. Amazing. I am just staying hydrated. I have quite a hectic week, so I always like to just make sure I have cups of water all around my apartment. So this cup is pretty standard here on the cup. It's just got some water. So I'm going to be hydration station all the way for this episode. Great. Okay. Let's dive into Dandelion Theatre's Timon of Athens. So before we talk about this particular production, this is a Shakespeare. Actually, it's a Shakespeare and likely also Thomas Middleton combo there. But we'll give a brief synopsis, but then I encourage folks to read up Spark Notes or dive further into the wiki page that I currently have open that I'll give us the synopsis from, because this is a bit more of a rare Shakespeare piece. It's rarely done, and I know, like myself, I didn't study it particularly in the theoretical or acting side of my training. I don't know if Alicia, if you did, but
I did not.
yeah, so I feel like it's definitely one of the lesser known and lesser done ones. So just in literally 2 sentences pulled from Wiki, Timon, our titular character, lavishes his wealth on parasitic companions until he is poor and rejected by them. He then denounces all of mankind and isolates himself in a cave in the wilderness. So this piece is definitely a more philosophical, sort of existential Shakespearean rumination piece, I guess is how I would say it. And I know we chatted prior to this recording, Alicia, like it seems like a lot of Shakespeare and Middleton were patching together kind of big swaths of texts or ideas. And that is what kind of birthed Timon of Athens. Another fun fact here on the cup, in the pandemic years, the early pandemic years, we reviewed Stratfest's Timon of Athens. So that episode may be linked now in this episode here. And so it was really intriguing myself coming to another production of this. And it's definitely a thinker and a political piece. Mm-hmm. And definitely ruminating on what you're watching and what you're feeling in the real world. This, that at least that conjured up for me here. But I guess, yeah, Alicia, what's your kind of general appraisal of the evening, the piece or production itself?
For me, I was happy to be invited back to the Cup to be able to watch Timon of Athens because I actually read the script back in um when did I? Oh, it was back in August when I auditioned for the piece. So I'm a bit familiar.
Yeah.
Um, and I think seeing it up on its feet and seeing the production itself, it was lovely to see. Um, I don't get to see as much Shakespeare as I would like to. So I think with Timon of Athens, it's more digestible for me as someone who, yes, I work in theater and yes, I've studied Shakespeare, but as someone who doesn't see as much Shakespeare as I should, it was nice to see a play that isn't done as much.
Hmm.
And Max Ackerman, the director of the piece, it was nice to see a modernization uh, in a way that is relatable. It's a relatable story of basically from rich to poor is how I kind of see it.
Yeah.
So I was just happy to be able to sit through the piece. It's not super long, like some Shakespeare. It runs on the longer side, so it is a one act.
Hmm.
And overall, there were some fruitful, delightful moments.
Yeah. 1,000%. Um, this piece is done also in the incubator space at the theater center, which is their more like black box. This was done in an alley segment. So there was audiences on either side of the play, and so that's always carves out a neat experience for me, being able to kind of watch the other audience members' reactions to what's happening in the space as well. And as per usual with the incubator space at the theater center, the lighting grid and the soundscapes definitely pop because it is such an intense, intimate space. And Max and the team definitely utilized, I want to say, like the extensions of the incubator and however the production saw fit. And because, like you're saying, Alicia, it is a contemporary modernization of the piece. I personally, every time I'm presented with Shakespeare that does take a twist, either in a different era or like fully contemporizing it, um, I'm a little bit more on the edge of my seat than if it's just like a pumpkin pants version, right? So to be on the edge of the the edge of the seat and in that tight space, to really kind of, and we'll get into it, but the audience acts like the court, like the citizens in some of the scenes. Like there is a breaking of the fourth wall. Minor spoiler alert before we go into spoiler territory. So yeah, wonderful utilization of the space. I thought this cast was very cohesive. The playing off of each other and the gesticulating, this is a very heavy textual piece. And because it's not known or it's not studied, I feel like it's sometimes extremely challenging to make text, especially the more poetic text, make sense to
Mm-hmm.
the audience at large. And I felt like everyone on stage was very good at making us understand and digest what was happening. So I feel like that is like kudos to the strong actors in the company, and then also kudos to Max and James. So James Llewellyn Evans was performed in it as Epimentus, and then also adapted the piece and also served as the dramaturg. So I feel like, again, through James and Max's helming of the piece, again, it was, my mom always says, like, she's like, I feel like it's a good actor if they can like make the average folk understand Shakespeare. So I feel like this whole production did that. Yeah. Okay. Do you think we should go into spoiler zone?
I think we should. I even us mentioning that it is more of a contemporary modernization. I was thinking, is that a spoiler? But on the advertisements, on like the ads of the promoting Timon of Athens, you can already tell just the image that of the cast, that it is
Yeah.
more contemporary. So I'm like, okay, that's not a spoiler. Audiences will know. But
Yeah.
I'm fine to jump into a bit more, some more specifics.
Yes. Let's do it. So we are going to pop a duffel bag onto the screen. So the duffel bag is there. Now I can explain why the duffel bag. So this piece, because it's also in the incubator, a lot of theater that's performed in that space, because it is small and there's not a lot of like wings or backstage space. A lot of productions are scaled down quite a bit when it comes to props and set dressing. So one of a poignant prop in this production, Alicia and I agreed, was the duffel bag. Primarily Timon's duffel bags of money or loot that he brings into the wilderness with him, and they get kind of tossed around and shoved around with and for different characters. So the duffel bag is posing as our spoiler shield today. Yeah. So, okay, talking about, again, I guess I'll just touch because I'm here. The minimal use of prop and set and costume pieces I thought were very, very, very effective in this piece. Again, kudos to the whole team of especially our actors playing the choral bits. So the poet, the painter, the merchant, the jeweler, they had several sort of like iterations of themselves, and that was either denoted through like a costume change or like a pop of prop. And again, like that's all we needed to know the context in which they were at. And as someone who's a huge fan of like political pieces or even like Brechtian pieces, when a production can use very little to tell us all we need, I'm obsessed. Like, yeah. So I want to just look up really quickly who our costume and set designer was. Max. So Max, kudos.
Oh, wow.
Kudos to that. Yeah. Directed and artistic producer of Dandelion Theatre, and costume and set was from Max's brain as well. So thank you, Max. Any particular elements you would like to shout out, Alicia, and we can chat through that?
Yeah, I think as you were talking, it reminded me, just based off of the text and James's work with creating the text as what it is. There was a bit of gender bending within the piece, and I love it when that happens in terms of with Shakespeare, there are specific roles. But then again, back when actual Shakespeare plays back in the day were going on when Shakespeare was alive, like the guys were playing the girls. So in a way, everything circles back.
Yeah, seriously.
But it was interesting to hear. So the chorus themselves, sometimes they were all men, even though they weren't. Sometimes they would step into the scandalous women characters, even though they weren't. So I kind of like that the chorus could just blend into these,
for sure,
these characters. After the play tonight, we saw the play earlier this evening. I went up to folks within the production and had congratulated them on their performance. And I did have a very brief conversation with James, and he mentioned that there are so many characters in this actual piece. So to narrow it down to, what is it, 5 of them, 6 of them? Maybe?
The whole cast?
The whole
cast is 7, yeah.
To narrow it down to 7 people?
8. 7 and then Timon. So 8 in total. Yeah.
Yeah, to narrow it down to just less than 10 people in the cast to make it a running show I think it worked really well. I don't think we needed extra characters. I think that specifically the chorus did a great job of blending into new characters, and I wasn't confused as to who they were. So I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
And I also want to talk a bit about, I don't want to give too much away because some surprises are great to have in the moment. But in terms of the audience participation, there where we were sitting, the sometimes actors would be running past us, and I thought that was kind of like a fun way to keep me alert and just to
Yeah.
keep me thinking like what's going on, where are they going next, how are they going to exit, are they going to pass back again by me? So I kind of like that. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. Speaking of, I want to pick up a bunch of things that you're putting down. Um, Cycling back to the chorus, the four members, the poet, the painter, the merchant, the jeweler. Um, I love that, what you said, how they sort of encapsulated the rest of the cast, that this, again, this production could have 3 times the amount of folks on stage, but utilizing them as different characters, as different humans, but part of Timon's world, or part of this sort of political sphere cave, for lack of a better term here, that we're dwelling in. It really, to me, punched home almost like 4 pillars of humanity, or 4 like archetypes that are existing in this sort of warped world that I think, and this maybe cycles back to me saying, whatever I shared this with you earlier, Alicia, like see a production of Timon, I'm naturally, my half of my brain is residing in what's happening in the political, philosophical sphere in real life. So watching Timon in my parents' basement, isolated during the height of the pandemic, and now watching Timon post 2024 US election, amidst all the other political dumpster fires that are happening around the world right now. That sort of swims around in my brain as I watch this piece. And I just thought having, those 4 actors carry out 4 pillars of people, and especially Max bookends, really quite heavy, like sound and movement charged, throbbing pieces using those bodies, I think was very clever, because it was like these 4 individuals were representing sort of like the average facets of humanity, and then layering in the theatrical elements of sound and movement, and making the audience sort of sit in like a huge space, or like sometimes icky images.
Right.
Again, I felt like was a really good bookend of the piece, if that makes sense. And then there was another thing you mentioned about the integrating of keeping us alert. So again, picking up the soundscape and the lighting design. I want to talk about those elements really quickly. So our sound designer is Ashley Naomi Sky, and lighting designer is Za Hughes. Again, any names we are mentioning today, if we are mispronouncing them, apologies on our end. But talking about sound. So one thing that was like an interesting adaptation layer to this piece is the constant infusion of sound, of music, or ambient music. Very little actually is there silence in this piece. Like I feel like there's always sort of a humming of some sort of musicality. And to me, and like I'll volley it your way in a second as well, Alicia, like I felt like it definitely served as like a subtext to the piece. Like my experience watching on stage and hearing the sort of music selection that Max and Ashley together picked, definitely drew me in, and maybe had me sort of like contextualize the scene in even a different way by the music or the sound we were hearing. But there were some moments where I kind of wanted there to be more silence or stillness. And I just think for me, that would have like personally punched the sort of pendulum swinging of like unnecessary noise and chaos, and then complete utter silence and feeling that weight. You know what I mean? but yeah, how did the sort of sound affect your viewing experience?
I think it was interesting to have, as you described, like a hum in the background, like an undertone, a subtext going on during the scenes. I do think it did. The word that's coming to mind is empower the scenes. It emphasized what was going on stage.
Right.
I think it would have been really interesting to have a strong moment of silence for a scene, because I would be wondering as an audience member, like something has changed, something has shifted.
Yeah.
But there was a fairly consistent level of like some sort of sound, some sort of music. And, sometimes I did find it a little hard to, because there were moments when I was like, what song is this? Wait a minute. So I did find it take me out occasionally, but not so much where I completely got lost in the scene. Like it just took me a moment, because I love to hear, I'm always interested to see what's going on in the background,
Yeah.
to build a story. So I think that crossed my mind of like, oh, okay, this is an interesting song. Oh, wait, what just happened? Why is that person yelling at that person?
Yeah.
But I do want to say that when the sound was complementing the movement, because there was some movement within this piece, I
Yes.
really enjoyed those strong moments, directed moments of movement. They were so lovely to watch in the space. The theater center is a fairly small space, so it was really cool to see how the actors used it within the movement and the sound.
Yeah. Touching on the movement really quickly, friend of mine, collaborator, who was the movement director and intimacy coordinator for this piece, Paige Foskett.
Wonderful.
Shout out to Paige. Yeah. Again, the bookended pieces of choral movement, and then also just the fluidity and flowing and again the politics of this particular production was absolutely led through movement, and through the moments of, like invasion of space. Like a lot of, there's like choking in this, there's like someone's neck gets broken, like, so again, the physicality of this piece, especially this production, was extremely necessary. And thank you, Paige, for leading the cast into fully expressing and exploring that. And paired with the music, it was brilliant. Like I felt like there were snapshots where we were watching a like politically infused music video, layered into this Shakespeare text, which is a really cool cocktail of bringing together the new and the old, right? And sort of using the tendrils of art to create a piece. What's neat with that as well is, I know, Alicia, you and I chatted about this before the pod as well, of this piece seems to me very like the text itself is very vignette-y. Like I feel like it's like patches of a quilt. I wouldn't be surprised if William and Thomas were just like, okay, let's just piece all these together, in the world of Timon of Athens. And I just found, again, the movement sort of played into that, because we had like, it wasn't consistent dance. It was, there's going to be like a break of movement or, like a punch of physicality or violence. And then that paired with, I want to cycle back to like the lighting design. I felt like there was a lot of lighting going on in this piece. But again, to me, it seemed purposeful because it was, for lack of a better term, augmenting or shining light on very visceral moments and very indicative of like, audience, look at this trash on the floor, or audience, this person's about to have their neck snapped, like the bright moments of light. But then when we were brought into the darker depths and the tone was changing, like it was almost near blackout, or like the red palettes were creating our sirens, or there was even at one point, it was like red on stage, but then the stage manager booth had like a blue hue. And again, it was like showing like sirens, like again, just the punches of movement, the snapshots of light, I felt really played into the form of this piece, which is like chunky vignettes is how I would kind of describe it as. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. Any other remarks from your end?
Yeah. Something that we also touched on before pre-podcast, which is the 30 minutes that we had to quickly chat. And something that we actually disagreed about
Yes.
is, so as we discussed, this is more of a modern contemporary version of Timon of Athens. And I think I was craving, this is just me I'm realizing this is just me as a person. I was craving just the Shakespearean text, which is in the play. But there were moments when characters had asides or comments, kind of like undertone comments that as they were exiting or leaving a scene or just within a scene. And I will say, I did find it pretty funny. Like, I did enjoy it. I thought it was funny. There were moments when I was cackling. There were moments when I was like, oh, that's what the character's really thinking. So It was a great way to understand what was going on in a character's mind. Mostly the chorus did this. I don't think Timon stuck with the text, which I thought that was a smart choice. I thought that it was easy to follow along with his journey. But the chorus, so the painter, the jeweler, and the others would have their moments. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, I think I was craving just asides still within that Shakespearean text, to see what that would look like in a modern world.
Fair. Yeah.
That is such a specific craving that not everyone has. And I totally understand that. I also don't think that made me dislike what I was seeing, because I still was enjoying the piece. So but I know we had a bit of a disagreement on that. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it's just, so peppered in, like, specifically, especially like you said, the chorus, like if they would go to approach Timon, it was very like, okay, am I the one doing it? Or like, oh, okay, we're doing this. Or like, wait, what? Like there was just, these peppering in of kind of like the inner thoughts that we have as actors, but we can't say normally because it's not written in the text, but we're thinking it to infuse what the text from the page is doing. Right. So what's neat about this is because it's Willie Shakespeare, you can kind of say anything in between. He's not gonna, sue you for not saying specifically as text as written. Maybe he'll come back from the grave. Who knows? Bring Timon with him. But yeah, so it's interesting because I do feel like there are some texts of his particularly that I do think that would bother me as well. It would just be like, I don't know, to me, I would see it as like not lazy acting, but see it as like, okay, this is more of like an exploration and rehearsal to kind of get your thoughts out and into the space and in shared community versus actually saying it. But with this piece in particular, I really enjoyed it personally. And it also just had in the back of my brain, my mom always says, like, when, as someone who doesn't see a lot of Shakespeare, she likes seeing a Shakespeare where the actors are really, really, really good at saying the text and having it be digestible for any viewer. And I find these little like added contemporary pieces of text, especially in this very contemporized adaptation, sort of added that extra flavor. And like, I felt it in the audience too. Like you had folks like giving that extra giggle because of this sort of modern flair added to so if they didn't for some reason understand the line, because the actor is again, like gesturing or doing a very like in their own body with their own thinking addition to what they're saying. the audience would be like, oh, okay, that's what they mean. Or I don't know. I feel like it just overall made everyone in the audience in on the action. And especially because this piece is done so little and folks don't know. Like, I guarantee you, a non-theater goer, you say, like, I'm going to see a production of Romeo and Juliet, they're going to know some semblance of that. Even if it's Romeo and Juliet, like, right? Even if it's like they haven't actually studied it or seen an actual Shakespeare production of it. There's enough culture to back that. But if you say, like, I'm going to see this play, Timon of Athens, I'm not going to lie, before theater school, I didn't know that that was a Shakespeare play. You know what I mean? So I feel like, I don't know, this added contemporary, just, it was like for the actors and for the audience, like it just was an added little pop. One thing I also want to say, Mo Zangami, who played the poet, one of our choral members, she graduated the year below me in the theater and drama studies program I went to. And what a treat watching Mo act. It's been a long time since I've had the honor. And she's a very specific actor and like the listener to the max. Like I felt I gravitated towards her offerings in the piece. So thank you, Mo, for that. But in particular, because I know Mo, like we went to parties together in theater school, etc. I know her flair and personality. And so especially when it came to the contemporary additions, I was like, oh, that's Mo, you know, like it's like, that's her vibe. That's who she is. So, I've also done some stuff with Chi Chi as well, who played the merchant. And knowing a little bit about Chi Chi as well, I was like, okay, yeah, that's so I actually do wonder, like being a fly on the wall during table work, if that was Max offering that, right, to the cast of please like have it in your body and in your own shoes as much as possible. And maybe that means you're adding little comments or asides in your own voice. Or yeah, if that was just something they did as like a rehearsal sort of shaking out of the text, if you will, and it just kind of stuck. Yeah, but again, I even just taking it further too, like because this piece does make you think of politics and, you know, doing art in present day for whatever reason, whatever piece you're watching, there is the life outside of the theater that is always looming in the back of our brains. And having this kind of like contemporary addition to the modern text, it almost offered like a this generation commentary a little bit too. Like maybe I'm stretching it. Maybe I'm defending it so much, Alicia, that I'm like, maybe it's like a commentary on the present day generation, you know, talking, using their own voice and you know, putting it on top of these big ideas and swaths of text. I feel like I could write an essay on this, obviously.
and you should, because I feel like a changed woman. I feel like I actually, because truthfully, I enjoyed the asides. I think I read Timon of Athens once, and I guess I thought that I was like a connoisseur or something. But, but I think only because I do like to enjoy, I love when people switch up Shakespeare. But I guess I love when people stick to the text and do it. But I will with this version that in terms of, James's dramaturgy, it was smart to have the actors provide their own side comments to the monologues, because truthfully they did add like some spice to the piece. They did make me think like, oh my god, why would you say that, and like giggle and relate. So I will say that it was a smart idea to have that option, because not all characters did it, but the ones that did, it made me, it was like another layer.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's what these episodes are for, right? We're sharing, exchanging our thoughts, unpacking. And this usually happens where one side is swayed or like, you know what? Oh my gosh, I didn't think of it that way. And so, gosh, we love talking theater because we unpack what we're already unpacking. But talking about layers too, another fun element, we already talked about how there was sort of audience realization and the actors actually talking to the audience, a breakage of fourth wall there. But there is a lovely scene that sets up one of Timon's parties early on, where Dandelion Theatre made the choice to treat the audience quite literally with a tiny plate of charcuterie and a little tiny champagne flute of champagne, which was probably just water, but it was served in a bottle. I thought that was such a lovely little element. Like, I already felt like I was like, okay, I see what this production is doing, especially with the intimate incubator space. We are the citizens. We are the party goers. This piece is just as much we're in on it as all the characters are. But just that added sort of, we're transitioning now into Timon's space. That transition is going to take some time. So instead of just having us sit in a state of what's the next scene, we were added to the party. We were, it was the front row. Alicia and I were 3 rows back. So we were the groundlings in that situation. We had to just view all of the folks below us getting treated. But there was like, a little plate of charcuterie for folks in the front row that the chorus handed out, and with a little beverage. So again, quite literally, the fourth wall did not exist in those moments. But then it was neat because it would go back up. Like, then I was like, okay, now I'm not an investor, I'm an observer. And
yeah,
now that I said it that way, that's an interesting way of another element of this piece, of like the audience as investor and audience as observer. And in a piece that deals a lot with wealth and money and monetizing of self and monetizing of country, of what have you, of thought. When are we the investors and when are we the observers? Can we be both? Wow. I'm definitely Appomantis. That's how you say his name, right? Yes. I'm definitely Appomantising my experience here. When are we the investors and when are we the observers?
So philosophical. I love it.
Food for thought. I feel like we could round out the episode right there.
I actually, like with that question itself, I'll be thinking about that for a couple of days. So
there we go. We love that. Again, I feel like we touched on what we need to touch on. Folks still have the opportunity to see this, to catch this. So this is Timon of Athens. It is a Dandelion Theatre production adapted by James Llewellyn Evans, directed by Max Ackerman. And it's happening at the Theatre Center, November 12 to 17. So definitely see this piece. Yes. Hello.
I also just want to say, in terms of the piece, 2 friends are in it. So I just want to say this at the very end.
Of course.
So, congrats to Nicholas and James in this lovely piece. Go see it, everyone. It's lovely to support theater. It's lovely to see different ways to do Shakespeare. That's one thing I love about Shakespeare. There's so many different versions and ways. So you have time to go see it and get your tickets.
Yes, we will pop all information down below in the description. And before we fully round us out, Alicia, I want to say thank you so much for being my theater buddy tonight and recording this extremely amazing episode that can lead into essays and essays, is what we're discovering. It's always a joy to have you here on the Cup. So where can our viewers and listeners find and follow your artistic journey?
If you have Instagram, feel free to follow me on @it-is Alicia Plummer. If you have TikTok, my @is hi Alicia by Alicia. So I'm also on there. Feel free to give me a follow.
Amazing. And folks can find and follow my artist Instagram account at Jillian.Robinson96. I'll be posting some cool upcoming projects I have down the line, so keep your eyes peeled there. I'm usually singing and doing some fun stuff on there too, so feel free to check that out. And as you are listening or viewing this episode, you have checked out Cup of Hemlock Theatre. Thank you for checking us out. If you are watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, pop into the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're listening to us on wherever you get your podcasts, thank you so much. Give us a review there. And we are COH Theater on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, what have you. Yeah, that's the cup. That's our episode, folks. So on that note, we will grab our cups that are full of water and tea. And we will do a final cheers. Again, stay posted. We have wonderful episodes down the line as we round out 2024. We've got some more reviews. We've got some interviews. So stay posted, stay well, and we'll see you next time.